Good morning from Springfield, New Jersey. I drove the 3 miles from Maplewood to a spot I've come to very often to get some kosher takeout. What's lost in this busy intersection is a significant Revolutionary War site. We've been here before, I've talked about it before, but I'd like now to talk about turning points. 1780, in early June, the British decided to invade New Jersey again from Staten Island with the help of their loyalist allies here in New Jersey. And that was June 6th, midnight, June 6th, 1780. And at dawn the next day, they marched west and they met resistance and then retreated back to Elizabeth for a few weeks. On June 23rd, 1780, they resumed the attack. From Elizabeth, they marched west, divided their forces, and ended up here in Springfield, New Jersey. What you're looking at now is the rebuilt Presbyterian Church. The British had a habit of burning Presbyterian churches, not sure why, but this is a rebuilt church. Professor Allison of Suffolk University recalls many times and has recalled driving by here. And this is the church. This is the Watts Church. More on that in a minute. Let's see if we can focus our camera to the east. We see normal traffic. This isn't actually normal traffic. This is light traffic. It's a Sunday afternoon around noon. Usually the traffic is pretty heavy and moving quickly. So as a result, the significant, very significant historical site is missed. But it's historic nonetheless. We're going to pan the camera south and back again to the west. This is Morris Avenue. At one point it was Morris Turnpike, and not too long ago, what is now known as Church Mall. This is a brand new interactive historic center here in Springfield. I recommend it. We'll look back to the north along what used to be called Main Street, until the interstate highway divided Main Street and turned this into a dead-end, quiet road. But the church remains, and the church cemetery remains. And this is not a military cemetery, even though soldiers of the Revolution and the War of 1812 are buried here. If we can zoom in a bit, yes, we see in the distance various stones, and the end of the road down that way. We'll turn our attention back to the Morris Avenue, or what was known as the Morris Pike, the Morristown Pike, the road to Morristown. That was the objective of the British and the Hessian soldiers. Along this left wing, Morris Avenue, remember they had divided their line around Stuyvesant Avenue. One went Vauxhall to the right, one went Morris to the left. Approximately 1 mile looking that way, looking in the northern direction, you would see monuments or plaques to the right wing of the British Hessian line that are still here to this day if one takes a look. What's significant about here, and the turning point here, right now we're looking Morris Avenue toward the west. We see a depression in the road, a dip in the road. In June 1780, General Greene, who was commanding on the scene for Washington, who was further to the west here, he had made this depression. The depression in the road was in fact a stream or a river. And it was a barrier. They hoped it would be a barrier. It was called, and there was a bridge here over the water called Second Bridge. Behind the camera, further east along Morris Avenue, is what was known as First Bridge. The British took that fairly easily through strength of numbers and artillery. But in the foreground, underneath where the light turned green and where the cars are coming from and going to, was Second Bridge. That was General Greene's last stand. he had moved his artillery a little further to the background of this frame and was ready to face the British had they crossed. However, the British and the Hessians, they did not press this crossing, just as they did not press the right wing approximately 1 mile in this direction. The British general on the scene and his Hessian counterpart felt it was too great a risk. He didn't want to risk losing men and material. He didn't want to risk the casualties, because along the way, had he pressed the action, he would have been faced with Continental forces and New Jersey militia forces who had the higher ground. So even though the British were moving and pressing, they chose not to continue on any further than Second Bridge here in Springfield, or a mile in this direction at Millburn. They were surrounded. The Continentals and the militia had the high ground and would have torn the British and the Hessians to pieces. The British commander on the scene did not want to risk such casualties, and as a result, they retreated. They retreated back along what was farmland and orchards, burning and killing as they retreated, and tearing and burning this church. Let's pause a moment while the bells ring noon. It is noon on Sunday, June 26th, 2022. We remember the afternoon of June 23rd, 1780, as a turning point, not only in the American Revolution, but in American history. Because after the British retreated burning and looting and killing along the way, they never again invaded New Jersey. Turned their attention south to the Carolinas, where in less than a year, the war was over. The British surrendered, and the United States of America was born. In 1 week, we'll celebrate and commemorate the Battle of Gettysburg, 159 years since the Battle of Gettysburg. That, too, was a turning point in the history of our republic. Think about that, and pause a moment. And let's put aside the partisan squabbling and remember this American Republic, what it took to get here, and how good it really is. Steve Eisenberg signing off from Springfield, New Jersey. Have a great day.